Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Hotels.com. Hotels.com gives you access to hundreds of thousands of hotels worldwide. And when you join for free, you can save up to 20% instantly with member prices. Plus, every stay earns rewards. So when you book one trip, you're already lowering the cost of the next one. Hotels.com is simple, rewarding, and designed to help you get more out of every stay. Sign up for free and book today. Hotels.com. It's all in the name. Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Amica. You know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So go with Amica and get coverage from a mutual insurer that's built for their customers, one that looks after what's important to you together. Auto, home, life, and more, coverage that fits your unique needs. Amica helps you protect what matters most. Visit amica.com and get a quote today. Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Mint Mobile. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/freak. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required, $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra, initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy, includes up to 20 gigabytes hotspot. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
From Stitcher and Dubner Productions, this is Freakonomics Radio, the podcast that explores the hidden side of everything. Here's your host, Stephen Dubner.
Hey there, podcast listeners, and happy holidays. This time of year, we would usually put out a repeat, but instead, we've got something new for you and something different. This grew out of a friendship with Angela Duckworth, a psychology professor at the University of Pennsylvania. I first interviewed her a few years ago about the book she had just written called Grit.
I define grit as passion and perseverance for especially long-term goals.
She is also founder and CEO of the Character Lab, which tries to harness the science of grit or character development to help young people thrive in school and beyond. And then she launched another, even more ambitious project called Behavior Change for Good, and we talked about that on the show as well.
The problem with human beings is that they're human beings and that they repeatedly make decisions that undermine their own long-term well-being.
Duckworth was always so interesting and fun that we had her join us as a co-host for a bunch of live shows.
So is it true then that picky eaters and hypochondriacs are more likely to be politically conservative?
One thing Angela does really well is ask interesting questions, and I admire that trait, since that's what we try to do every week on this show. So I thought it might be fun to just sit down with her for a conversation, armed with nothing more than a question to ask each other. This happens to be one of my favorite hobbies, a mutual question-asking society. You never know where a conversation like this will go. More often than not, it leads to more questions, like Russian nesting dolls. And that is what you are about to hear, a little matryoshka of a conversation. We had so much fun making this episode that we are thinking about spinning this idea off into its own podcast, separate from Freakonomics Radio. You think that's a good idea? After you've listened, write to radio@freakonomics.com and let us know what you think. All feedback welcome, whether you like it, hate it, or feel profound indifference. And thanks so much for all your interest and attention over this past year. Every month, nearly 4 million people around the world listen to at least one episode of our show. I'm glad you're one of them. Okay, on to this special episode of Freakonomics Radio. Happy holidays. Angela Duckworth, question for you.
All right, I'm ready.
Let's say that you personally are granted one genie wish, but it's multiple choice. You get to be in the top 1% globally in either grit or wealth or intellect. Grit, wealth, intellect. And now let's say this is you are who you are, but not really.
I was just going to ask, are we talking about then you're going to be like in the bottom 1% of the other ones?
No. It's not that. And it's
I just get to like upgrade in one dimension.
Yeah, let's say that. Well,
right?
No, that's tricky because you may already consider yourself.
Gritty.
Right. So let's say no. Okay, let me rephrase the question. Not you, Angela Duckworth. You, person.
Yeah. This is like the veil of ignorance that like I'm a human.
Right. Who came up with that?
It's John, is it Rawls?
Hume, Locke?
Rawls, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's either Locke or Rawls.
It doesn't predate that? I thought it was like Ring of Gyges.
Oh my... No, I think the veil of ignorance is like, within the last 200 years.
So let's say you put on the veil of ignorance and you are a new entity. And I say, you, O veiled one, get to be in the top 1% globally forever in either grittiness, intellect, or wealth. Which do you choose and why? That's really what I want to know is the why.
I mean, honest answer, but predictable answer, I would choose grit.
Because?
Okay, so first of all, for wealth, I mean, I really just don't have any desire to be in the top whatever percenta of wealth. And I'm sure you could do a lot of good with that wealth, but it's never been, an appealing pursuit. So
maybe not for its own sake, but then
instrumentally, though. I know you were saying like you could do great good.
Right. Or even if not great good, whatever the stuff you could hope to get with the grit or the intellect, couldn't you get a lot easier with the wealth?
I think there's a huge difference. And my good friend, and you may know him, the psychologist Barry Schwartz has
Paradox of Choice.
The Paradox of Choice guy. So Barry Schwartz has something new that he's really obsessed about, and it is intrinsic motivation. And he would say, he calls it internal motivation, just to not be confused with, what some people call intrinsic motivation. And basically he says, if you have a garden and, the garden is producing beautiful flowers and beautiful fruits and vegetables, and you tend to the garden, there's a kind of worth, value, and satisfaction that is derived that is different from if you pay a gardener to do your garden. And I think there is something about earning your accomplishments that I don't think wealth, because wealth is kind of instrumental. Like, I could pay somebody to, accomplish this great research. It's different from doing it yourself.
Or, so I can't say I don't agree with you, or I can't say that what you said
because I think you wouldn't have chosen wealth either, by the way.
Resonate. Yeah. Right. But on the other hand, I could argue, well, if I'm at the upper end in wealth, then I could afford to have 10 different gardens that I would tend myself and have all different kinds of experiments and experience to figure out, let's say I believe that the satisfaction that you just described of producing yourself, let's say that is the most valuable thing. Well, I've just increased my ability to have even more of that.
I have a portfolio of garden investments
exactly.
even, right?
Well, not just investments, but a portfolio of gardening opportunities.
Oh, opportunities that you would then tend.
Yeah.
Although, it's hard to tend 10 gardens.
Well, how do you know? You haven't tried it. You're not wealthy enough to have 10 gardens.
That's true. I'm not even wealthy enough to have
but you're
one
knocking
garden.
out wealth. You're knocking out wealth.
Right.
Okay.
But, I'm not passing moral judgment on anybody who wants to be wealthy.
Intellect, you're also knocking out. Now, we should say you're...
Now, that was the horse race. That's where I was
and you're a pretty smart cookie, I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, so here's what my husband would say of me. Right. So my husband thinks that the great irony is that I have spent my entire professional career studying everything other than IQ. In fact, my doctoral dissertation is called Non-IQ Predictors of Success, right? It's got a hyphen in it, non-IQ.
It should, because it's a compound adjective. For our listeners out there, you should hyphenate your compound adjectives.
Yes.
So if you have a high school teacher, it should be it should be high-school space teacher. Otherwise, you have a high school teacher.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's true. Yeah, so hyphen.
The kind of person who might say hyphen instead of hyphen.
Yes, exactly. Right. So non-IQ. So I study all these non-IQ things like grit and delayed gratification and growth mindset. And so the irony my husband thinks is that really I'm personally kind of obsessed with intelligence and that I love it and I, wish I had more of it and that, I really enjoy people who are just, wicked smart.
And you seek out and accord higher status to people who are wicked wicked smart, even if they don't seem that high status in other realms?
I really love talking to people who are fast. And that
fast?
Yeah, like their brain. And I know that's not the only way to be smart, but just that their brain moves really quickly. And you're like, oh, and then it doesn't take them that long to process a thought and then move on to the next one. So he's right about that. But I didn't pick it, not just so I can be like consistent with my brand, but I do think if you made it multiple choice, Stephen, so I can't really say that I wouldn't want to be smarter too. But in the long, long run, there are a lot of really smart people who don't accomplish much, but in the long, long run, I don't think there are that many people who are just, the epitome of passion and perseverance who don't, do something.
Are you sure? I mean, isn't the world full of people that we don't know about, despite the fact that they've been super gritty and they've exercised, as you just ticked off, perseverance and passion, and yet didn't, quote, accomplish enough to become known?
Well, this is the thing about multiple choices, right? You're...
Oh, now you're blaming the test.
Yeah, I'm blaming the test. I'm blaming the test maker. I'm blaming you, Stephen.
Sure,
okay,
fair.
So here's the thing, though, right? Because I think in a multiple choice where you're forced to pick one, really on any of these, you could say, well, what if? Because I think actually what we want to be in life, you, me, and everyone else, is, we probably want to be more than one thing. So you're right. Grit isn't the only thing you need, to be happy and successful. But if you have grit and, good judgment, or, grit and humility, grit and a big heart. So you're right. It's not the only thing. But, neither is intelligence the only thing.
Sure.
Right? So there you go.
Well, let me rephrase the question slightly then. Think about the purpose, I guess, of life. And what you think is the highest purpose, or it doesn't have to be one thing, right?
Yeah.
What you believe to be kind of...
My highest purpose, you mean?
Right. So let's say that in order to successfully reach or fulfill that purpose as best as you can, which of the following then would be most useful in pursuit of said purpose? Grit, intellect, or money?
Again, you're making me pick one, which I get it.
Well,
right?
but first tell us what's the purpose of life?
What's the purpose
what do you
of
think?
my life?
Yeah.
I'm just going to use that big qualifier there because I don't want,
Sure.
right? It's
Fair
not,
enough.
Not for me to tell you about your life. I think the purpose of my life is to achieve something. In other words, I do not think that the purpose of my life is to do something like be the happiest person or have the most experiences. I remember distinctly the day I was taking a walk with my dad. I was, young enough to still be like holding his hand and looking up. So I don't know how old I was, but I was a little girl. And I asked him, so I was old enough to ask him this question. I asked him if he was happy. And he stopped because every time he had to answer a question, he would just stop walking. It was very annoying. We didn't get very far, very many days. And he said, why would I want to be happy? I want to be successful. So I do think I inherited my father's sort of like life is about accomplishing something important. And for me, it's, I want to help kids like lead a healthy life. But I don't really think like, oh, I want to, I haven't been to that country. Like I want to see what that, restaurant is like. I don't care that much about like that kind of happiness.
And do you feel that you're driven toward that kind of accomplishment out of generosity and good-heartedness, or because, look, you've accomplished a lot in your life. Your CV reads like a track record of a successful person, right? Great institutions of learning, great accomplishments, you have a job, nice family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is it that you want to help other people, like I said, out of generosity, altruism, or because you derive great pleasure and even, dare I say, happiness from the feeling of accomplishment?
So Immanuel Kant, or Kant, depending on how you want to pronounce it, said, I think, that if you do something good because it brings you pleasure, right, because it feels good to do good, then it doesn't count, right? And I remember when I learned this, I was taking justice, moral reasoning. It was like my freshman year in college. And I remember thinking oh, what a guy thing to say. I feel like it's such if it's not rational and it's not only because it's a moral principle. I actually think that a lot of our most benevolent and honorable motivations come from a kind of visceral, it feels good. So when you ask me the question oh, why do I care about kids? I really like them. I mean, I really give me a random kid. I just like them. Give me a random adult. I don't know. I often like them, but not as often as I like kids.
Where do dogs lie on that scale?
Oh, dogs are below kids. I'm really kind of not a dog person.
But above adults?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah, dogs might be somewhere between. No, I kind of like adults. I think I actually like adults more. And then
You
cats,
like dogs the least.
Cats? You didn't ask me about cats.
Yeah.
Cats are like right there below kids. I'm kind of a big
Oh, so you're
big
just a cat person. So I just
like
asked
cats.
you about the wrong animal.
Exactly. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you like cats more than adults.
Yes. Let it go on the record.
If an adult has a cat,
Then I like them 10 times more.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I do get a lot of just like, I don't know, selfish enjoyment from being with kids and like the idea that you could make some kids out there like happier. So there's I don't think it's a, purely, an unemotional motive.
I really appreciate that distinction you just made. And it makes me think, back to the kind of grit theory of life, which is without a passion for something, then it becomes a little bit of a, accomplishment for accomplishment's sake or success for success's sake, right?
I mean, I think you can be a gritty person who's using all your grit for bad. I mean, let me just be clear. Like, I don't want to say
Hitler was gritty.
Yes. The canonical sort of, everyone rolls out Hitler as the example of like, oh, but then again, there was Hitler. But in this case, yes.
I'm sorry if my example was a cliche. Stalin was also
Hitler
gritty.
Kids, yes, okay. Stalin. Let's take Stalin for a little variety.
Mm-hmm.
But no, seriously, I think in general, one of the things that really motivates people to stay committed to something for a long time is feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. Now, again, you can be misguided, but very, very often it is a kind of like benevolent, like, oh, this isn't just for me kind of motivation that also, it's maybe not your only fuel, but it's also one of the things that motivates you. So for me, like, yeah, I would pick grit because I feel like I would be able to achieve what I want to do with my life, which is to accomplish something for kids. Intelligence, I think, would also be awesome. If you made it two choices, of course, I'd pick intelligence probably is my second choice. But, why don't I just be the gritty person who gets all the smart people to work on this project? That's basically my strategy in life.
Coming up after the break, Angela Duckworth has a question for me.
This is the question I could have studied in graduate school for psychology, but I took another path.
Which inevitably leads to more questions.
Like, how many Prince Charleses can there be in the room, right?
You are listening to this special experimental question-asking episode of Freakonomics Radio with Angela Duckworth. We'll be right back. Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Cash App. Bitcoin is often talked about as an investment, but it was built to be used. With Cash App, you can actually do that. Send Bitcoin instantly, pay at local Square businesses that accept it, or move it to your own wallet whenever you want. It works more like real money and less like something locked in an account. For a limited time, new customers can get $10 added to their balance. Just use code CASHAPP10 when you sign up. And don't forget this part, send at least $5 to a friend in the first 2 weeks. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Bitcoin services provided by Block Inc. brand. For additional information, see the Bitcoin disclosures at cash.app/legal/podcast. Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Figure. Did you know that 40% of homeowners own their home outright? If that's you, don't let your equity sit idle. Tap it with a home equity line of credit. Figure, the #1 non-bank HELOC lender in the U.S., helps tap equity you've built in your home so you can do things like tackle a renovation or pay down debt. HELOC is a line of credit secured by your home. You can draw what you need, repay, and draw again. Figure offers a 100% online application. Get approved in 5 minutes and funding in as few as 5 days. It's faster than a bank loan and cheaper than a personal loan. Check your rate today without impacting your credit at figure.com/Freakonomics. This post is sponsored by Figure, NMLS ID 1717824. Figure is an equal housing lender. For more information about their licensing, visit nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Figure's HELOC is subject to credit approval and terms apply. Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by LinkedIn Ads. Ever invested in something that didn't live up to the hype? Marketers know that feeling. They optimize for the numbers that look great, like impressions, but then they don't see revenue. LinkedIn has a word for that: bull spend. Instead, you can get the highest ROAS of major ad networks with LinkedIn. Cut the bull spend, advertise on LinkedIn. Spend $250 and get a $250 credit. Go to linkedin.com/Freakonomics. Terms apply.
Stephen, I have a question.
Hit me.
This is the question I could have studied in graduate school for psychology, but I took another path. And here it is. Charisma. The other day I was talking to my younger daughter, Lucy, and she said something about how you can't teach charisma. Some people are naturally super charismatic and some people nobody wants to be with, and you can't get from one end to the other. Do you think that charisma can be taught? And like, I don't know, you've interviewed a lot of people. Who's the most charismatic person you've ever met?
So I like the question. I could answer the most charismatic people part. That's easy, but let me go back to the nature of the question. So the nature of the question is charisma, learned or inherent, correct?
Yeah,
that's
like
the question?
nature, nurture, charisma.
Okay, so in order to answer that, I would want to turn it around and ask you, how are we defining charisma? Because I have a definition in my head, but I want to know what yours is.
All right, so I'll go first, and then you tell me yours, okay? So I think charisma is a kind of almost like a magnetic force that draws people's attention in a very positive way. So when we think of somebody who is like really charismatic, it's like you can't take your eyes off them, and they're the star. They sort of like, you know, it's not like you can't take your eyes off them and it's terrible. It's more like it's a very admiring, and also I think kind of like almost an affectionate kind of attention.
Yeah, I think that was a very good definition, better than I could do, because I was about to think that you were describing someone who could also be terrible, but then you saved it at the end by bringing in affection, right? It has to be a positive, right? I mean,
well,
I think we all know people who are charismatic who have bad
well,
intentions.
I think Donald Trump is charismatic.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think...
Do you agree?
I think even the people who hate him the very most would agree.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I mean.
I do.
I'm not saying that I...
Gotcha.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
So, I like your definition much better than mine. Mine would be something like charisma as the quality, someone having the quality that makes me want to do what they do or believe what they believe.
Oh, so you want to emulate them?
It makes me want
them.
to emulate them in some way. So it's a little bit different than an inspiration, but I define charisma as somebody who embodies or articulates an idea,
like a point
worldview,
of view.
Yeah, that strikes me as like, yeah, that is.
So they're persuasive. They're like maximally persuasive in
not
a way?
necessarily, because look, there are a lot of people who hate Trump as a president who describe him as charismatic, and plainly they're not being
They're
persuaded.
not persuaded. Right, that would be me. Like, I don't think he hasn't persuaded me very much. So so other than Trump, let's just name some people that we think are super charismatic.
So, first of all, I'm really bad at fill in the blank. I'm better at multiple choice. But you asked me who I've interviewed that I think is charismatic. So I'll name a few, okay? Wynton Marsalis, the musician. Now, I happen to like his music, and I happen to like him as a person, and I happen to like his story and what he does. And he was just like, I just wanted to like have a stool and carry the stool around and sit wherever he was. He was just,
around.
He has a spirit about him that I find joyful and challenging and large. And he has a way of dealing with bad things that people have said or done too that is very like, yeah, that was a crap thing, and that's not my problem. I'm going to figure out how to do my thing well. And I love that. You know, Bill Clinton, I have an interview, but I interacted with him a few times. He has...
Oh, if you Google it, because I Googled it. I
mean,
I didn't do a
plus
PhD
blank,
on it, but
and
I
it's
Googled
Bill
it.
Clinton?
Yeah, well, you're like, who is super charismatic or like charismatic role models? Or if you go on YouTube and you look for like charisma videos, so you usually get like Will Smith, Bill Clinton. Actually, interestingly, they're mostly men.
When I was thinking through just now, I was coming up with men, and I had to like actively turn on the
you're like, oh wait,
search engine over.
Women.
So I did think of a couple. Well, let me finish my list, because Clinton, whatever, But I think a lot of politicians, I mean, that's how they're successful.
Yeah.
It's like Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles that you and I
Oh my gosh,
both know
so
a bit.
charismatic.
Super charismatic.
Super charismatic.
Also the mayor of London, who we had on the show recently, Sadiq Khan, super charismatic. But again, I think there's a strong overlap between charisma and electability.
Okay,
right?
yeah,
Probably not
yeah.
so surprising. Here's someone I found super charismatic, even though he's not like vibrant necessarily, Steven Spielberg.
Oh, really?
Because
Don't know him.
I found him, this was a long time ago, but I spent about a week with him writing a piece about him. And I found him really remarkable in this sort of combination of, this is probably not quite right, but it felt like a combination of confidence and humility that made him appealing.
Attractive, so appealing.
Super attractive.
But now I feel like our definition is getting too big, right? Because now I feel like we're just like, oh, and I sure like Steven Spielberg.
Either that
like,
or I
he's
never
such a
interview
great
charismatic
guy.
people.
Yeah, well,
And
maybe.
truth be told, I think most people that would be
Freakonomics.
characterized as charismatic are not the kind of people that we interview.
I would agree with that. I don't think you get many like
Except for you.
It's present company excluded. No, but I don't think you get much like mileage in academia by having, charisma.
Well, that's probably not true.
I mean, I think you get a little bit, right? But here's the thing. Here's a narrower definition, because I don't want it to just be like, oh, people we like, or likability. I think that when most people think of charisma, they're thinking about a public speaking, like TED or some other venue, where it's not just like, oh, you and Wynton Marsalis just happen to be at a coffee shop and like he happens to be really, I mean, I know we use that word charisma also to describe those people. But in that case, then the question is like, what makes somebody who's in a kind of public role really, why did Hillary Clinton? I think Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are a really good example, because if you Google Hillary Clinton, Bill
Do you
Clinton
think he
charisma,
did a charisma transplant in her sleep and stole
okay,
hers?
so you're saying the same thing that everyone says, which is that he was naturally charismatic and she was the opposite.
I didn't
and
say
she just-
naturally, by the way, but
Yeah, I did put that word. Do you want to say it? It's multiple choice.
I have no idea. I mean, I've read a fair amount about him. My sense is that he realized from a very early age what he wanted to do and figured out how to do it. And part of that was being charming. The first time I met him, like I said, I've interacted with him a few times in a...
Just playing golf or something?
No, we actually... I warmed up for him as a speaker several times a few years
really?
back. I think we had the same lecture agent, maybe still do. And he was out speaking a lot and I was out speaking a lot. And sometimes we'd be like part of the same.
Yeah, you'd be on the docket together.
And the first time I met him, this is an example of his charisma. I had just finished speaking. I came backstage and he was standing there.
Yeah.
And he was nice and kind and chatty, whatever. And then, check this out, he goes out to start his talk. And how does he start it? By complimenting me, the former speaker. He said something like, how about that Freakonomics? You've read the book, now you've seen the movie. It was even better. Like a totally gratuitous...
It was
that made me
warm,
feel
it was
good.
generous.
It was super generous.
Yeah.
So anyway, to me, that is like, that's the fine line between like charisma and what's right before it or after it. Because like charisma, I just looked up the etymology. I don't know how accurate this is. The English term charisma is from the Greek, which means favor freely given or gift of grace.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Which implies a sort of benevolence.
Divinity, too. Also, it implies a kind of... Because if you imagine somebody who's like lower status than you being charismatic, it doesn't feel right. It feels right for someone to be Oprah and charismatic, but not like somebody who is, So,
wait a minute. Give me an example. What do you mean?
Well, okay, so here's my view of... So, by the way, I was an intern in the White House during the Clinton administration. Actually, I believe it was the Monica Lewinsky summer.
What do you mean you believe it was? You know it was.
Wait, okay, I know it was. I know. I sound like a politician. Like, well, it may or may not have been the summer of Monica Lewinsky.
And how much did you interact with President Clinton?
Well, I was in the speechwriting office, and so I penned a few of his very short remarks, including the, address to the land grant colleges. It was it was like a anniversary, and I did get to meet him once.
Can you give us a phrase
from his remarks
from one of your speeches, maybe on the land grant?
Of the land grant.
That was a big deal.
I cannot recall verbatim, but I believe that he expressed his, steadfast commitment to this great American tradition.
Wow, that's juicy.
How's that?
Thanks for sharing that.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was like 20-something. I didn't know what I was doing.
So you met him once.
I met him, and, even then, because now I feel like, in some ways his reputation as like the go-to charismatic role model has even become greater than it was during his presidency. And even then everybody said like, oh gosh, all you have to do is be in the same room as Bill Clinton, for a minute and you'll fall in love.
So one thing that people say about him and many other people who are, quote, charismatic, is that when you're talking to them, they make you feel as if you're the only person in the room.
Yes, and I think he did have that kind of rapt attention. And so I will say that when I met him, I mean, it was something like all of 12 seconds, right? Like he thanked me, he shook my hand. He took both hands in his hand. Like, he used both of his hands to shake my hand.
Did he kiss you on the lips?
He did not kiss me. I was not his favorite intern, I guess. But he does look you in the eye. And he did do something. Now, I may be conflating this with like YouTube videos I've subsequently watched on like how to be charismatic. Because like I said, I find this just interesting as a scientist. He kind of like, you make eye contact, right? And it feels like he just wants to keep looking at you and like that you look away, right? Like he can't take his eyes.
And his eyes are so intense that you just can't stay locked
like,
on because you're afraid you'll melt?
I can't say, but I tried this out. So I'm like watching these YouTube videos now. This is fast forwarding, like many years, like couple decades later. And it was actually during my book tour. And I was sort of like both interested in charisma, but also I was like, oh, when you're signing books for a line of people where you can only interact with people for like 6 or 7 seconds, like what advice do you have to? So I'm Googling charisma, and here's something that I found on YouTube. Again, this is not validated scientific, fact, but it said, for example, when you're in a receiving line, don't look away. Like, the other, they're eventually going to look away, but don't be the first one to look away. And I do think that's all about signaling to somebody like, I want to be here. You are the object of my fascination. There's nothing else I want to do but listen to what you're going to say next.
So did you learn to sign their book while looking at them?
No, but I did try to actually not look away because I thought, well, first of all, I just wanted to try it and see. And I do feel like it was one of those like nonverbal cues of respect, right? Like, okay, think about the opposite. Like, how people, I remember this when I was in college, there would be certain people that you'd have breakfast with, and you're in the cafeteria and they're kind of looking over your shoulder to see if there's someone better to like talk. I hate that. And this is just the opposite of that, right? So you're really just paying respect to the person.
And did you also, I mean, if you have 6 or 7 seconds, you obviously have to be very efficient. Did you also say their names when they left? Or
you mean the Dale Carnegie effect?
Exactly.
Right?
The power of positive. Wait, not the power of positive. How to win friends and influence people.
Yeah. So the Dale Carnegie effect, where you say someone's name, Stephen, right? Do I do that? Well, I think Dale Carnegie was right about a lot of things. And I think he's right about this one, which again, all you're doing is you're giving somebody a cue that they matter, right? And I think a lot of charisma is like, this person really thinks that you matter, but it's only half of the equation, right? I think you also have to signal your high status. So, it's kind of like, I like you and
I'm worth,
and the world likes me.
Yeah. So what do you do if you're not high status?
Well, I remember figuring this out in 3rd grade a little bit for myself because we moved. So we moved from like one side of town to the other. My dad got promoted, and I actually think there were railroad tracks. So maybe it's like the wrong side of the tracks to the right side of the tracks. And it was January, and it's the middle of the school year, so I had to make friends. And this new kind of posher neighborhood where the kids were wearing designer jeans. I was just like, well, how do I do? So I actually had that problem, right? Because I had these like frugal parents. I wasn't wearing designer jeans. I was the new kid. There wasn't anything especially awesome about me. I wasn't very athletic. So I remember like explicitly thinking out loud, I think even maybe wrote it in my diary, like to make friends, you just need to communicate 2 things. I like you and I like me. So if you want to communicate, I like you, eye contact, mention their name, like be interested in what they're saying. How do you signal I like me, which is really a proxy for the world likes me? That actually I think is a little more like nuanced, but I think that, smiling or, basically not being self-deprecating, maybe things like posture help, but I think the most effective, way to do it is for somebody else to signal that you're high status or that the world likes you.
So you pay people to treat you as if you're better than you are? Is that what you're saying?
That would be one way. I didn't have a lot of pocket money when I was in third grade. But
how did you signal as a third grader then that you liked yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, first of all, I did. I was pretty happy.
So you just put the humility out there.
Just like letting it all hang out.
Uh-huh.
And I think I was like happy. I mean, I think that the people who like walk around the world and they do signal those two things, and I'm not saying it's a recipe to follow, but I do think like if you just notice the people that are attractive, it is so often that they make you feel like you're great, and they also seem to have like a healthy, they have healthy self-esteem.
Let me ask you one last thing on the topic of charisma. Is charisma a not finite but limited resource in that, again,
like it runs out?
Well, no, not quite. But is it not quite a zero-sum issue, but like if there's a group of 20 people, how many people can...
How many people
Yeah, because if everybody's charismatic, then isn't nobody charismatic?
Yeah, I do think there is something about, when people are like, oh, they stole the show. I think that we use that language because there is a kind of exclusivity about charisma. And that's why I say there's something about status. Like, I met Prince Charles. I was very young. I was in my 20s. And I think for him to be charismatic, he already had the high status part, right? So he had half the equation, like, just by birth and by everyone else treating him the way they were treating him. All he needed to do is the second part of the equation, which is like when he's with you, to be completely rapt, to be just totally fascinated by what you're going to say. And he pulled it off. I will say he was genuinely charismatic. So I think there is a kind of like, how many Prince Charleses can there be in the room, right? Like, the moment a king walks in, he's no longer, the highest ranking person.
That's so interesting. And I never thought of like stealing the show in that way, right? Because if you gain, somebody loses. So it is maybe not zero sum, but so if people listening to this want to have more charisma, is the easiest way to just surround yourself with people with really low charisma?
The contrast effect? I don't know, because you're also trying to signal that the world loves you, right? So like, I like you and the world likes me. Those are the two parts of the equation. This is my little proto-theory. So if you really were someone that the world liked, like, why would you be hanging out with losers, right? So
I like how they went from nice low charisma people to losers.
Total losers.
Gosh.
I know. Look at that. Me being all high status and all that. Maybe not the most charismatic thing to say.
Thanks for listening to this little stocking stuffer of an episode with Angela Duckworth. So, do you think we should do this more often as its own separate podcast? Let us know by writing to radio@freakonomics.com. Meanwhile, coming up next time on Freakonomics Radio, there is strong evidence that exercise is wildly beneficial. There is even stronger evidence that most people hate to exercise. So, if a pill could mimic the effects of exercise, why wouldn't you want to take it?
When we gave it to sedentary mice, the drug progressively activated the genetic program that is normally activated by exercise.
The 0-minute workout, just in time for your New Year's resolution. It's next time on Freakonomics Radio. Freakonomics Radio is produced by Stitcher and Dubner Productions. This episode was produced by Allison Craiglow. Our staff also includes Greg Rippin, Zach Lipinski, Matt Hickey, Daphne Chen, Harry Huggins, and Corinne Wallace. We had help this week from James Foster. Our theme song is Mr. Fortune by the Hitchhikers. All the other music was composed by Luis Guerra. You can subscribe to Freakonomics Radio on any podcast app. Our entire archive is available exclusively on the Stitcher app or at Freakonomics.com, where we also publish show notes and transcripts and where you can sign up for our email newsletter. We can also be found on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Freakonomics Radio also plays on many NPR stations, so check your local station for details. And thanks for listening.
Stitcher.
Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Ozempic. Innovation happens through rethinking what's possible, and when it comes to GLP-1s, Ozempic pill does just that. Learn more about Ozempic semaglutide tablets, 4 and 9 milligrams, by calling 1-833-OZEMPIC or visit Ozempic.com to view the medication guide and ask your doctor what's possible with FDA-approved Ozempic pill.
Welcome back to Should I See a Doctor?
Contestant, you're camping when a rash appears on your leg. Do you A, ignore it, B, frantically search the internet, or C, use telehealth through Walmart?
Telehealth through Walmart? Who knew?
Oh, I'm going to say C, Walmart.
Correct. Walmart can connect you with 24/7 virtual medical care. You genius, you.
Well, I can fold a fitted sheet.
Walmart. Who knew? Telehealth services offered by third-party providers. Restrictions and fees may apply.
In the U.S., there's a break-in every 26 seconds. But when intruders step near, Simply Safe Home Security steps up.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Using AI alerts, U.S.-based live agents help deter break-ins. Simply Safe, no long-term contracts. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.